It was ugly, but it was still a win. USC defeated the Nebraska Cornhuskers 21-17 on the road. It wasn't pretty, but they got the job done. I've got my instant reaction for you on this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you. Thanks once again for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, and even your first listen late at night. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to listen to this podcast, pick your platform, download this show. It's going to be free, and this show is definitely going to appreciate your support. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. It was a night game. It was a blackout game. And USC played as poorly on offense as they possibly could. And that's not an exaggeration. I probably should have known this was going to be an odd game. So on our way out from Omaha to Lincoln, Nebraska, myself, Eric McKinney, and our photographer, Alan Zhao, cruising along, no traffic, Interstate 80, going from Omaha, Nebraska, down to Lincoln, about an hour drive. Out of nowhere, while I'm observing the beautiful colors on the trees, having a good time in the back seat by myself, just enjoying the atmosphere. Out of nowhere comes a coyote. Out of nowhere, that coyote gets slammed, smashed, killed, and our rental car is being dropped off at a McDonald's. We're about 30, 40 minutes away from Lincoln, Nebraska. Anyways, long story short, we got a ride share, we got to the game, and we waited around for the game to start. I don't know. Maybe they needed a later start because USC, when they got off the bus, they were rocking it. They were shaking it. They were doing their thing. Unfortunately, the offense stayed on the bus. It was ugly. I can't say it any clearer than that. USC played as poorly on offense as I've seen them. Probably have to go back to that last season that Clay Helton was the head coach. And then Dante Williams became the interim head coach. Regardless, USC improved to 6-2. And yes, I don't think they'll win the national championship this year, but their playoff hopes are still alive. They're still in the playoff hunt. So, quick story. USC, how they won this game. They did it on using 3 walk-ons and their running game and their defense. That's how they escaped Lincoln, Nebraska with a 21-17 victory. About a minute and a half left in the game, USC took their first lead, 21-17. Excuse me, with about 10 minutes left in the game, they took their first lead, 21-17, and that was on the back of King Miller, who was just doing everything in his power to keep USC in this game. Because as I said, offensively, they were ugly. Getting nothing done, which is kind of ironic because Jaden Mayava was running the ball and he was doing it often, but his passing game was terrible. As I mentioned, 10:06 left in the game. USC took their first lead, 21-17. It was 14-6 at halftime. USC had the 6 points, 2 field goals. King Miller, he finished the night with 129 rushing yards. He also had the touchdown that gave USC the lead. USC, their defense, they gave up just 3 second half points. Again, they were down 14-6 at the half. Defense bowed up. Now, I should include this. Nebraska lost their starting quarterback, Dylan Raiola. And once he was out for the game, that really changed the complexion because Nebraska's got a really good running back. His name's Emmett Johnson, and he had a really good game. Nevertheless, when there was no threat of the passing from Nebraska, now USC was able to key in on the run game and get enough stops and make Emmett really have to work. So Trojan, as I mentioned, the passing game was non-existent. Jade Mayaba, these are his numbers for the night. 9 of 23 for 135 yards and an interception. He did run for a 16-yard touchdown. In fact, he picked up 62 yards on the ground. He was using his legs, and that's what we've been begging all season long. When will we see Jaden use his legs to escape pressure or just on a designed run? And there was a few of those. And when they did it, it worked. They kept moving the chains. Hopefully we get to see more of that incorporated over these next 4 games to end the season. So as I said, in the first half, USC had just 6 points. Let me give you some offensive numbers. This is for the game. And it ain't good. USC had a total of 337 yards on offense. It's not terrible, but that's not what the number 1 offense in the country is supposed to be doing. Especially when you have the number 1 passing offense in the country that, like I said, 135 yards. Defensively, USC only gave up 286 yards total. So as poorly as USC's passing offense looked, Nebraska's was worse. 98 yards. So, yeah, we'll take that. But again, grain of salt. Nebraska was going with their backup quarterback for pretty much the second half of the game. Rushing yards. USC put up 202 yards on the ground. And Nebraska put up 188. I said during the week that USC had to be able to contain Nebraska's running game if they're going to have a chance to win. They didn't do that. But because Nebraska's passing offense was worse than USC's, that gave USC the opportunity to stay close and find a way to pull this thing out at the end. So yeah, they started out slowly, but again, came all the way back, took that 21-17 lead, and they're going home 6-2. King Miller, very productive. As I said, 337 total yards for USC. When your running back has 6 fewer yards than your quarterback had throwing the ball, things are disjointed. Things are off. And USC was off on offense. Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, they had 2 catches apiece. You got to give credit to Nebraska's pass defense. They were the number 2 pass defense coming into this game in the country. They're doing something right because they were able to literally take Jacoby and Mekhi out of the game. I think the play of the game, for me, it's easy because that passing game wasn't working. It was late, and it helped set up King Miller's game-winning touchdown. It was a flea flicker, right? So Jaden takes the snap, tosses the ball to Brian Jackson, who gives it back to Jade Mayaba, who finds Jaden downfield for the long catch. It was huge. Jaden Richardson. In fact, it was the longest pass play of the game for USC, 43 yards. It happened in the 4th quarter on a flea flicker. If I had to give a second play of the game, after USC took the lead, when they got the ball back later, Sam Johnson, he had a punt, I don't know, about 51 yards. It pinned Nebraska back on their own 3-yard line. And without any threat of them throwing the ball, USC was able just to pin their ears back, stop the run, and eventually they were lining up in victory formation, taking a knee at the end of the game. So they got a big 4th quarter stop as well at the end of that 1st quarter. At the end of the 4th quarter to seal the game away. Excuse me. It was a night game, was a blackout, sold out. The crowd was into it. It was a hostile environment. Somehow USC got the job done. They figured it out. All right, this is my instant reaction show. I got a couple more segments to go. We're going to talk about the stars of the game. I got 3 of them. All 3, they're walk-ons. And in the 3rd segment, we're going to talk about what's next. What does USC need to do? There's a lot they need to do. We're going to talk about that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, there are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move the crowds, they move the culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment, it's literally how USC responded in the face of adversity. Passing game wasn't working, running game was. And you know what else was working? USC's kicker, Ryan Sayre. He is quickly becoming the MVP of this team, the unsung hero. We'll talk about more about him in the third segment. But yeah, Ryan came up clutch. USC would have been shut out in the first half, but he kicked a 24-yarder, he kicked a 49-yarder, and that kept USC in the game. Now they need to show. This USC team, they're going to go home on a short week. They're going to take on Northwestern on a Friday night. They want to keep those playoff dreams alive. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So I'm not sure this has ever happened before, but as you know, when I'm not doing the Locked On USC podcast, which I love to do, I'm also over there at wearesc.com. Put up some articles, during the week. Got a lot of written content, great recruiting stuff. Well, we do what we call our 3 stars of the game. We only do that after a win, but I've got my 3 stars. Here's mine. And I don't think I've ever picked 3 walk-ons before. I'm doing it for this game. I talked about King Miller in the first segment. Well, let's keep King Miller, let's keep that name in our mouth. Again, 129 yards on the ground. Excuse me, 129 yards, 18 carries. And he was needed. He was necessary. I mean, everything that he gave you, USC does not win the game without King Miller. Without the passing game, there was no big plays going on other than that flea flicker. So, King Miller got my first star of the game. Well deserved. Again, it's only a matter. It's not if it happens, it's when it's going to happen. He will be getting a scholarship. There's some stuff involved behind the scenes that you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can be awarded that scholarship. It's coming. Here's my second star of the game. He's related to King. It's his brother. It's his twin brother, Kalon Miller, who had to enter the game in the first half when USC's right guard, Alani Noah, had to leave the game. Not sure exactly what the injury is. He went to the locker room. He came back. He was still suited up, but he didn't have his helmet with him. It looked like it might have been a lower body type of thing. He left the field on his own. He looked to be okay, but I guess after the doctors evaluated him, they said, no, you're not going to be playing anymore. That's okay. Hopefully he'll be fine for Northwestern. In the meantime, Kalon Miller, King's twin big brother, stepped in at right guard. USC did not skip a beat. I mean, without him, in fact, Kalon was one of the guys who was opening up the holes for King on some of his longer runs. Kalon has turned out to be a major part of the rotation. Think about it. USC played, so your starting offensive line, you had Elijah Page at left tackle. He was back. Tobias Raymond slid back to left guard. John Ray Reed at center. You had Alani Noah starting, eventually replaced by Kalon Miller, and Justin Tawanuu at right tackle. They played really well. I think this is their 6th different starting combination this season. Maybe, 5th different starting combination. And I can't even keep track of how many different offensive lines they've trotted out there once the game started and someone got hurt and you had to, kind of play musical chairs. You have to give a lot of credit to Zach Hansen having his guys prepared, ready. Going into the season, everyone's concern was, how will USC's offensive line perform? I can make the argument, they have been the best unit on either side of the ball this season. The most consistent unit, and that's with a bunch of their guys not playing. Specifically, Elijah Page missing a few games, Keelan O'Connor missing a few games and constantly having to move guys around because of injury. So you got to love what those guys are doing. Absolutely. So you got King Miller, star number 1, running the ball. Kalon Miller, right guard, walk-on number 2, getting another star. And I mentioned kicker Ryan Sayeri. Man, that dude is just nails. All he does is deliver. In fact, after the game, I asked him, because Coach Riley mentioned it, that he just has the same calm demeanor at practice, during the games. Doesn't get high, doesn't get low. He just does his job. And so I asked Ryan, I said, Coach mentioned this after the game about you. I go, where does this come from? How do you approach it this way? He says, well, me and my brother, we talk about it. Delivery guys, they're paid to deliver. Nothing special. Just go out, deliver, do your job, deliver, make the next delivery. He sees himself as a delivery man, and he's just doing his job. You got to appreciate that, right? So you get 3 walk-ons who are USC stars of the game. I could pick some other guys who played well on defense. By the way, we should definitely give Desmond Stevens some credit. He bounced back. He had a great game. Of the 3 linebackers who played the majority of the game, Eric Gentry, Desmond Stevens, Jaden Walker, Desmond was solid. He was fantastic. He was playing the way we all wanted to see him play all season long. He was attacking. He was playing with violence. He wasn't getting beat. He wasn't getting pushed around. Somebody else who I thought played really well on defense. I'm going to go with Marcellus Williams at cornerback. He was getting picked on. He had a really strong game. And then, you know what? Let's give some flowers to freshman wide receiver Tanuk Hines. Transfer wide receiver Jaden Richardson. Both of those guys came up big when they had to. So there wasn't a lot to write home about on offense. Defensively, the team looked pretty darn solid. Again, they let Emmett Johnson get loose. There was times where you're like, oh, here we go again. It's not Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, but the guy's still picking up chunks. He was still, breaking arm tackles. Eventually, USC settled down and got things going. To begin the game, so USC won the coin toss. They elected to take the ball. 3 and out. And Coach Riley got cute again. I'll say it. It was a stupid call. On 3rd down, I don't know what the alignment was. If you were watching it on TV, you tell me. But it looked high schoolish. The play went for nothing, and USC was punting the ball after 3 offensive plays. Nebraska, meanwhile, they followed their script. They marched down the field, scored a touchdown. It looked like it was going to be a long night. Eventually, USC's defense settled in. They gave up 17 points for the entire game. You have to give some credit to the defense. Did they look great? No. Did they look above average? Yes. And they looked so much better than they did when they were playing on the road against Notre Dame. So I guess what I would say is this was the middle ground between how great they looked at home against Michigan and I almost said that a bad word, how crappy they looked on the road against Notre Dame. They found that middle ground. And against Nebraska, that was good enough. Now they come home. They got 2 games in a row. First one, Friday night against Northwestern. Then they'll take on Iowa, a really good defensive team who's playing much better the second half of the season. So we'll see how that goes. All right, got one more segment to go. And we're going to talk about what's up next. What's next for this UST team? Can they build off of this road win? Build up some momentum. It's coming up next. Well, the weekend is almost over now, which means hopefully you took some time and you ordered some DoorDash, because when you have DoorDash delivers, you're going to save a lot of money. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash using DoorDash Streaks, you can save money every single time you order. And these players delivered most when it mattered. I just talked about them. Kalon Miller, King Miller, Ryan Sayeri. Without those 3 guys, I'll say it. USC doesn't leave Lincoln, Nebraska with a victory. They just aren't going to get it done. You needed the walk-ons. So USC players, they took their time to deliver the winning highlights, the winning plays, getting the job done. So just like DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this next coming weekend. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period is going to run through November 18th. FanDuel is also a sponsor of the show, and the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to, kind of ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. FanDuel, right now, is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So before we close out this episode of Locked on USC, I got one more segment to go. Let's give a round of applause. The Dodgers, back-to-back World Series champions, despite their manager doing everything possible to give it away. If you watch the show enough, or if you follow me over there at wearesc.com, I'm not a Dave Roberts fan. I think he wins in spite of his decisions. Somehow or another, the Dodgers pulled this game out. Game 7, World Series. It was a really good World Series, maybe one of the best ever. So that's out of the way. Baseball season's over. We can now all focus on the USC Trojans. There's a lot of people watching that World Series game while they were watching the USC game. So hopefully everybody's still in a good mood now. All right, so this is what's coming up next. And I'm going to have another episode of Locked on USC tomorrow. MVP3 will be here, Marvin Powell III. We'll get much more detailed, we'll do a much more detailed analysis of this game. This is just my instant reaction, kind of talking off the cuff, spitting stuff out, whatever pops into my head. So you got Friday night coming up. It's going to be a short week, and Coach Riley talked about it after the game. He loves the way the Big Ten is helping USC with their schedule. He was being sarcastic. We're going to get on an airplane around 3 a.m, fly back to LA. Short week for a Friday night game against Northwestern. Do not count this Northwestern team out. They're scrappy. The same program gave Nebraska a hell of a game last week, and Nebraska needed everything in their power to win that game at home. Then after that, Iowa's coming to town. They're playing a really good ball. They're, I would say, the second best defensive team in the conference behind Ohio State. Right there with Indiana. Indiana is a complete team. Iowa brings the defense. They pack it wherever they're playing. So we'll see how that game goes. Then USC, they're going to fly up to Eugene, Oregon the week after that. That's going to be the game. If that's going to be the game that decides whether or not USC is going to make the playoffs. Right now, they're staring at, if they win all their home games, you got 7 wins. So you got 2 more wins coming with Northwestern and Iowa, and you got UCLA at the end of the season. So you can get 9 wins. You can finish with 9 wins if you're going to assume USC is going to go up to Eugene and take a loss. If they can sneak one out of there, that's 10 wins. They're going to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. Here's what we know, though, before we get to these last 4 games of the season. Can USC stop the run right now against a good running back? The answer is absolutely no. They can't. They looked better in the second half against Nebraska, containing Emmett Johnson. Again, a lot of that had to do with Nebraska's starting quarterback, Dylan Raiola, sitting on the sideline. So that's something that USC is going to have to clean up. We're going into game 9. They have to figure it out by now, right? Can USC play composed and win on the road? Well, they can win on the road. They're showing us that. I don't know if I would say composed or disciplined. DeCarlos Nicholson, I'm not sure what was going through his head when he was taunting the Nebraska sideline. He was hit with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and that kept USC's defense on the field. Fortunately, it didn't come back to bite them. Something else we got to start keeping an eye on. Jaden Mayaba. That's his fourth game in a row now with an interception. And these aren't, like the opposing team making a great play. These are bad throws. This interception they threw this time off his back foot, he kind of just flung it out there. It's one thing to trust your guys to make a play. It's another thing to make a bad decision. And that's what that was. What else do we have to look forward to? I kind of mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Coach Riley, he called himself stupid. Well, he said the play that he called against Notre Dame was stupid. I'm not sure what that was. First series on offense, third down. What? Why? Why does he feel the need to get cute? Just run the ball when you're getting the job done. It doesn't have to be, look, I can pass the ball. Look what I can draw up in the sand and throw at you. Why are you doing that on third down on the road on your first series on offense? I don't get it. I'm not asking for Coach Riley to be fired. I'm just asking Coach Riley to be the best damn head coach and play caller I know he can be. And sometimes he makes me do this. What are you doing, Coach? If you were listening, I was scratching my head. I don't know. I don't know if it's ego or hubris or what. But sometimes you just, so I look around at my peers in the press box and we're just like, what? What are you doing? We all can't be wrong. All of our untrained eyes can't be wrong. But I don't know. I'm getting frustrated just talking about it. And I know it makes for a good show. But if USC wants to become a great team, you got to throw that stuff out. Run the ball, throw the ball. When you're up big and you want to get fancy, you want to get some style points, dial up that type of stuff. Right now, you're not good enough to do it, especially when you're missing key players. So yes, here's something else we know at this point of the season. Coach Riley will get away from the run game when it's working, and no one understands it. Yes, you want to have a balanced offense. Sometimes if it's not working, it's not working. Just go with what works. And Nebraska was saying, run the ball. They were light in the box. You got to take what the opposition gives you. And let me just clarification for everybody. Lincoln Riley knows more about offense than I will ever know in my entire lifetime. That doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes. And that doesn't mean he's not above constructive criticism. If you want, look, you want to take it up with me? Take it up with me. Hit me up in the comment section. But this has got to stop. Because it's not going to make us feel any better about, going up against teams that play fundamentally sound football. And that's Iowa. They will wait for you to make a mistake. And Lincoln Riley has shown he's willing to make a couple mistakes per game. It's one thing to trust your players. The players have to be able to trust their coaching staff to put them in the best position to win. And sometimes I wonder, I really do. And that you cannot pull that stuff when you go on the road to Oregon. You just can't. You just cannot do that. All right, that's it for this instant reaction show. USC 21, Nebraska 17. Trojans are 6-2. They're 4-1 in conference. They got their sights set on the playoffs. It's still there. Go get it done. Go get it done. All right, that's it for this episode. Instant reaction in the books. I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. Me and Marvin will get it done. Until then, everyone, you know what to do.